Good morning and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be taking a look at a Nilfgaard Masquerade Ball Imprisonment deck that I put together for 9.6.1, and honestly I enjoyed it so much that I just kept playing games and we were winning a lot of games, and I just decided to get a ton of games for you guys today in this deck guide. It's probably going to be the longest deck guide I've ever made, if not the longest deck guide that ever exists, because it did so well. Before I get into the card list, I'm going to show you guys real quick basically the record that we had. I ended up going 11-3, and you could see these games were played back to back. So as I started to steamroll, I became a little bit inconsistent towards the end, and I decided to take a break from playing. But all in all, it was actually very good in this case. Now, going into the deck, we have Masquerade Ball. Now, this is a scenario that's going to help us get a Thirsty Dame on the row and give us the two Fangs of the Empire that we're going to be able to bring out and poison units. Now, Thirsty Dame engines very nicely with this deck because we have the ability to put a bunch of locks on their side of the playing field. They're going to be getting statuses of their own. We're going to have lots of poison with the Fangs off the scenario, the other poisons that we have in deck, and of course the Cupbearers. There's plenty of things here, and you know, the ability to give a bunch of spying units on their side of the board as well, because we do have a few spies in the deck, and Brathens to make another one. It's going to make quite a difference if that engine sticks. Now, you'd be surprised. I thought that by playing Masquerade Ball we'd run into a lot of heat waves. However, the amount of times that the ball has been heat waved in this guide will surprise you. It wasn't all that much. So I'm very happy with the results that we've got from that, and I think that it's worth playing around because not everyone's going to have a heat wave to answer this. And second to that, we have Usurper. This is just a really good point slam. Now, ideally, we want to play this in round 3, so we have the Aristocrat tag, and every time we play a spy, or agent rather, it's going to be boosting itself by 1. So it's a really good engine. It plays very good synergy with Masquerade Ball, obviously, as one of the units to proc it, and it's just going to really help, especially in that short round that we have. In a short round 3, it's going to be tons of points. Now, moving on to Brathens, this can be used numerous ways throughout the game. If we're struggling for proactivity, we can go and we can create an emissary and maybe boost up something like the magic lamp or another one of our tokens, or something, you know, small, like something that comes off the Blightmaker, like the Guardian or the Mage Assassin or something like that, just so that we can sort of spread out the points and not really play into tall punish. Now, if there's an engine on the opponent's side of the playing field that we want to make a copy of, we can go into the Duchess Informant. Assuming it's a bronze card, we can go and we can make a copy of that and play it for ourselves. This is not a very assimilate heavy deck. You'll notice I cut the Vigo out. There's no Terra Nova in this list, and that was intentional. This is going to be classic ball that's going to be reworked for 9.6, and Brathens just sees a lot of value here. Now, the third option that you might not see in every Masquerade Ball is the Mage Infiltrator. This is going to be a solid card to play into the ongoing Milva matchups and other engine deck matchups where you just want to go in there and clean up house. And this comes back to our side of the playing field if we can get a death blow, which is very easy to come across because we have so many different things to set that up, whether it be the tourney jousts or leader charges and so forth. Maybe Anna Henrietta plays against another leader like Guerilla Tactics or Onslaught that has damage pings for their leader charges. We can just go in there and finish the kill with that. So it plays very nicely. It also helps set up our coup if we're looking to nudge something down and we've spent our leader, for example. We have the ability to go and ping something down and slap a coup on it and take that unit for ourselves. So it makes a big difference. Now, I put Yan Calviet in this list. It is an Aristocrat. It does proc the Masquerade Ball. I've done another deck where I introduced Masquerade Ball with Enslave 5, and it worked out very well. But in this case, I still think that Calviet's really good. And if you look at the amount of tactic cards that we have in our deck, we have the 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this will get pushed up 5 spots in the deck. And generally speaking, we should see this card in our hand on the second round. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to notice that this card is very common in our first or second round draw, which is perfect for getting that ultimate carryover into round 3. So I'm playing it a little bit differently than the last time I played it, but it is very good in this case. And, you know, we can play this on a dry pass round, we can play this in a bleeding round. It's really cool that way. Or if we're looking to potentially 2-0, play this late round 1, go into round 2 with all of our resources ready to win the game. So it's really good in that way, and Vincent is actually phenomenal in this meta right now. So lots of different options. If you're playing it against a deck that has a Crystal Skull or a Shield Stratagem or anything of that sort that's going to be giving any sort of status, you can go ahead and you can abuse the coin by playing this card when we're on red coin. This is also very good into the Syndicate matchup with the Savola Frightener, because instantly we're guaranteed, once we see that matchup right now, that Vincent's going to be playing for about 15 points, right? 3 base power plus the 12 removal. So it makes a huge difference there. The Aristocrat is a perk, so it's going to be able to proc the Masquerade Ball if we're short on Aristocrats, which just makes sense in this case. And if there's nothing that has a status that's already on it, we can give status with, you know, one of our own poisons, then we can just complete or finish it with that. And leader would be a second option, the last option, you know, not really the preferred option to go with leader then Vincent, because we're damaging it off the leader. Now, I like to have multiple tall punish in the decks that I make, especially nowadays. Yennefer's Invocation just makes a lot of sense here. Going from, you know, Vincent, which is a little bit more conditional, this can just pick something up, remove it from play right away, and it's nice to have that there, and it's very effective in pretty much any Nilfgaard list that you have. Anna Henrietta is one of those cards that I dabble with here and there, but I really felt like it was necessary in this deck here because we have these 2 leader charges that we can use to set up coups or lock certain engines, but a lot of other things we're removing, and once those charges are spent, it would be nice to get something back and to have something as like a round 3 finisher. So Anna Henrietta helps do just that. A lot of the leader charges going around right now are really good swings for, you know, just damage removal and stuff like that. So we're playing into a lot of guerrilla tactics, we're playing into a lot of onslaught, we're playing into a lot of double cross. You know, there's really good just solid leaders going around. There's not a lot that don't benefit as much here, so I felt like it would see really good play in 9.6. Dead Man's Tongues just for consistency. If we're not pulling into the Caveat, we want to make sure that we get that sooner. We can go ahead and take the Dead Man's Tongue, and it's going to play for anywhere between 8 to 12 points depending on what we banish from our decks, so it plays pretty well. Generally speaking, it'll probably peak at around maybe the 6 here and the 4, so it'll probably peak around 10 points more than often. But I like to take my Blightmakers if I can separately, and then just sort of get rid of something I don't think will be as maybe essential in that matchup. Like if we're playing into a no unit, maybe banish the Fangs or whatever have you, right? So it's a good versatile card that gets us the cards that we need for later game. We have Van Morla tongue twister, Van Morlaham's Cupbearer. So with this one here, the assimilate's kind of nice because we're creating cards off of Brathens and off of our scenario, and potentially off of if we get cards that create cards from coups and stuff like that that we make. But to keep it simple, it's here for 2 reasons: to help finish a poison or to purify something. So if we're playing into poison or if we're playing into a lock and we need to fix something on our side of the board, we can go ahead and do that. If we're looking to play this offensively, we can get that extra reach with this card. So I really like it for that reason. It generally gets a few extra points, maybe 2 or 3 in this deck off of the added assimilate tag, so it plays quite well. We've all seen Blightmakers before. Blightmakers with the Maid Assassin acts for probably my favorite deck thinning combo in the entire game. Super simple, tons of points, tons of tempo, and it's justified in just about any deck that you have for Nilfgaard. So great stuff there. We talked about why we have the 3 spies. Tourney Joust is going to be one of those things that is going to help us get the tactics that we need to make Caveat a bit better, but I also like a little control, so we could play it that way. If we need proactivity, we don't have Brathens or Emissary round 1, we can always just put a Tourney Joust on a magic lamp if we happen to go first. You know, that's assuming we have nothing else we could play, but it works quite well. Worst case scenario, and we can obviously use this to take care of an engine or something like that on the opponent's side of the board. If we're playing into a lot of engine decks, commonly they'll start off at 4 base power, so this is a really good removal for those things. And simple enough. This just gives poison. Van Morleham Hunters in here for a couple reasons. Additional locks, additional points off of the bleeding to bring things down for the coup, and of course to proc our scenario if we're running low on aristocrats. Generally though, we can probably play the Van Morleham Hunters out of hand if we have them, whenever we get them. So if I have one in hand round 1, don't be afraid to spend it, because once we get Caveat down, we're pulling into all of our aristocrats. So, you know, if we get to round 3, we have the 1, we have 2 here, 3 here, besides Caveat, right? So we've got, there's 4 in the top end that are aristocrats, 6 kind of rounds it out here. So I don't usually have any sort of problems whatsoever. In fact, I don't think I had any problems at all today with using these whenever I felt like it, because we always had the backups here. And that's pretty much it. So let's get into the games for you guys today. I have 12 games, and hopefully I can sit through one take of this. I might have to just take a break halfway through or something like that. But again, let's get into the games here, and I'm really happy to show you guys this. Alright, and for the first match we have Skellige Onslaught. Now, we actually pulled into a pretty good round 1 hand. I don't think I want Tourney Joust here, just because they're going to have a lot of armor. And with the Fangs, we don't really have a follow-up poison. Pulling into Vincent Van Morleham's probably one of the best options that we can have here, given that they have the Crystal Skull stratagem. So if they hike something up, we can just go ahead and remove that right away and really flip that coin. Kind of confused when I saw it was non-devotion, but I guess that's fine. Crack on crates, awesome. If they're going to boost this, I'm definitely going to remove it. Otherwise, we might consider just using a lock. And so that pretty much does it for me. I think that's worth the removal every time. Now, they can bring it back maybe later with Fuchsia, but we can deal with that at a later time when they do. The alternative for Vincent here was maybe taking Yennefer's Invocation, but I felt like there might be something else that we'd want to maybe take and play later for ourselves, like, or just maybe they go taller than that. I think it's just fine either way. Now, I opted for the leader charge here just because I felt like I want to actually spend one now and one later, just so that I can cycle it out a bit better and I can play Anna Henrietta just fine. Also because with chipping off the 2 armor, I can go ahead and maybe make a copy or 2 of the Raider here, and then ultimately get a pretty good coup. So that was also something that I was thinking about. And sure enough, with the small commitments we would have made at this point, they're thinking, okay, we have to start going for it too here, so I actually don't mind seeing that right now. And I've decided at this point that I'm going to try and really push it. I want to go for a situation where I'm having them lose on even. I think that that's going to be a good advantage for us, because Skellige often gets stronger as the game goes on. With a lot of the veteran tags on pirate units, they'll be at their best in round 3. So if we can try to get some of the big commitments out in round 2, it should make a big difference, really. Was not expecting Giga Scorpion though. I think we can just slow down a little bit here and take that. Now, you know, I didn't really want to have to use the damage on the 1 there. It makes a coup a bit worse if I was to just straight coup the Raider. However, we do want to keep pushing here and keep staying points ahead, which is why I opted to use the damage there. And obviously there's nothing else that we can really get full value from. So we got Crow's Eye, which is strange. And then we got the second leader charge. I'm fine with that. I think at this point that deserves the invocation, right? It's hard to say if there's anything taller than that we'd want to punish in this matchup. Also, the fact that it's an ongoing engine, whenever they play a boat or a pirate, it's going to get some benefit there. So now we have round 3 commitments coming out in round 1 just to kind of keep the pace. This is the situation that we want to be in, and we didn't even let them know that we have our thinning packages, so we have tons of points packed within the 2 blight makers here. And we could pretty much play our entire hand, which is great.
Resist the Jarl's will, and that's how we'll end you.
I bring death, quite literally.
So there's no reason not to take that there. Now, we don't obviously have the ability to copy the raider anymore, so we can copy the invader if necessary, but we get the pass here. So moving on to round 2, we can decide either we want to try and go for the 2-0, or we try and just pass here and get the card advantage. We'll find out quite soon what we're going to do here. The hand's not very good, but it's a good trading hand. And I actually like the cupbearer in this matchup because if they have a Turvy, then it's going to get really good value here. So I decided to go ahead and play the Calviate just because, get that out of the way, it's hard for them to make the points in one card, and we can pull into good cards for a short round 3. So Turvy comes down in an answer. This is what I was expecting, something along these lines here, which is perfect cupbearer value. Heatwave is pretty interesting though, I wasn't expecting that. I suppose we just play the Holger from hand, right? Now, the reason why I wanted to go ahead and play that right there is because if I took the armor off, then I could leader charge to bring down that 6 to a 3, and then use my coup on that, and then basically give Rupture to whatever they play next, which would give us a really good push in the round, and basically provoke like an all-in situation, I think, at least. When I see Fukusha come out here, I'm starting to think that maybe they're running out of steam. Using the last Oniro into Fukusha, barely staying ahead here, and we have just a really solid play. It's probably the best Turvy we're going to possibly get in a matchup like this here. Put that down. It's unfortunate that the Holger had to go ahead and hit the crack on crate, but it's still going to be 6 points that we remove here. Now, we could probably just go ahead, thin the deck out a little bit here, get a good point swing. I know they spent a heat wave, and probably take care of an RNG card. Just put it on the 1, because then we're not really going too high, so if they have a Morkvarg, it's not really enough. And I think they picked the wrong Morgvark here. Our Turkey base power is not the same, but that's fine. And we don't want to use the left just in case it goes to round 3. So we picked the middle, I believe, here. We just damaged whatever doesn't have armor on it. Now they still have to find 13 points in one card. I don't think it's possible at this point. And that's game 1. It was pretty good. Nice little 2-0. And the Skellige matchups have been pretty good so far. So when I see this leader, I'm automatically thinking it's probably going to be Self-Wound. However, you might see a surprise Lippy here and there. Who knows? So I'm kind of preparing for both. I want to have a strong hand that we can really play down just in case it's Lippy. I think we kick Usurper here, don't we? Yeah. And at the time of playing this here, I was kind of struggling for proactivity. I don't like using Blightmakers on an empty board, so you'll often see me opt for using Attorney Joust on the Magic Lamp sooner, just because I don't feel like wasting points. Now, I'm thinking it's Lippy. For whatever reason, I have a hunch that it's Lippy, and I want to set a bit of tempo so we're not left chasing. So I felt like Brathen's was the appropriate response to that, and I want to get a death blow here, just to get the extra point back on our side. Seeing the priest is a little bit of an indication that perhaps it's not Lippy, but again, I've seen some Lippy decks that run it as well, so that's also something to consider here. I'm trying to decide if there's any benefit of putting our placement anywhere else, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe we want to have that spying unit there for whatever reason, so we'll just keep it. It didn't really matter either way, but we can start our own. And it's kind of nice, because we're splitting up the points a little bit by putting it beside the Magic Lamp. Or the Lamp Djinn at this point.
Few poachers dare venture into the Von Morlohum's wood.
We play around Tall Punish just a little bit. And they don't really have any active engines on the board. When I see... Again, at this point, I'm still not convinced, like, if it's Self-Wound or if it's Lippy, because Coral could be played in either or. That's the tricky part about this matchup and predicting what you're up against.
Let's not get in the way of the axe.
Obviously, you see we're at a point here where we need to start putting out some tempo. So, we got a good hit. There was about 5 good hits on the board, and then, of course, 3 bad ones at the time. We managed to get a good one. I want to lock that, just because I feel like if we lock the Coral, Burna could be a thing, and I want to play around that a little bit too. We can't afford taking those extra 4 points of damage at that point, so... Part of me wants to greed Calviet, part of me wants to greed a Joust. I think we take Calviet before we lose the chance, and at this point, I was thinking, okay, we should probably look at getting out of the round. I'm also looking at how they're running out of space on their board, and it's quite possible here. I don't remember if I checked the graveyard, but I think Burna could have a potential to brick, right? The row's really full. So, I guess we'll never know what's in the grave. I don't know if I checked, but so they went and used the leader charge, but it doesn't get them ahead. They would have to use another one here, right? And so I decided to go ahead and just take the way out, just in case. We played Calvi at first, and I was also considering that there was a chance that, you know, the way they're playing, how they're pushing it so hard, that they might just pass on a tie, and surely they do. If you guys are on the other side of the matchup, it's a really tough position to be in, because you know when someone plays Calvi, they're going to pull into a good hand, and you know that's only going to get better if the round is longer, so it's kind of like, once you get to that point, you're pretty stuck. But I have a strategy and an idea of what I'm looking to do here, because we have Anna Henrietta, which may be useless in the matchup unless they have a blue boy. But if they do have a blue boy, it's going to come down for 6 base power. I'm going to try and leader coup that and take it for us and get some good value from it. So I'm just sort of playing around that right now. I want to see the blue boy on the empty board, and I saw it here, and I was so excited for this video. I think that's the best coup we're going to get, and I don't know if they're expecting Anna Henrietta at this point. They play into ball so nicely with this deck too. They have status on the 6. We can give status to the 12, poison that out. And
what do you need?
I think you know where this one's going.
I can do a great deal more for you.
And we just trade damage here. And so this is nice because it procs ball, it gets the leader, and then we can use it right away. Now, we don't necessarily want to use the blue boy right away because we don't want to take away value from our poison. So what I'm thinking about doing here is putting down the Vincent to finish one of the kills, probably on the one with Doomed, right? And then we can take the poison from the Fangs, and we can basically get rid of the big bear, right? And then now we get to start cranking and see if we can get rid of an engine or two. And I think at this point, you know, it's safe to say I'm just going to use the last charge on something, but we don't get the chance. Moving on to the third game. We have Enslave, and again, it's nice to see people are using Crystal Skull. It just makes Vincent even better. We have a really good hand to play thoroughly in round 1. Like I told you, Calviet is often going to be in our first round pulls, or one of the first cards we pull into our second round mulligan phase. And we can just go ahead and play that this round, so it works out really well. The only downside here is that I actually don't have the Vincent. And I feel kind of guilty if I go ahead and take something like a Yennefer's Invocation on a Fire Scorpion, to be honest. Because I know there's going to be so many different, better options in this matchup. So I'm opting for preparing it for a coup. And it's nice because they didn't even use the ping. So we could actually just take one leader and coup it.
A shame I haven't.
I should have done it there, actually. The greed might have costed us 1 point. Because if they're using... Okay. That's one of the benefits of like going back and watching the games too, is seeing, you know, I'm watching it now instead of playing it now. There's no pressure, I'm just sitting back and seeing it. Okay, at least it didn't cost me. I think that's fair. I wouldn't say it's a mistake. It was just kind of erring on the side of caution, maybe preserving the leader charge longer than I needed to. And we face a tough choice here because I'm looking to Calviate soon, right? Now, normally you just instinctively grab the Blightmakers and do that whole combo and put that away. But because I know there's a probability that we're going to be pulling into it, it's extra points that we could save for later. And it's a really good swing of tempo too, so we don't just want to chuck it all the time.
I forgive you this time.
So they play theirs, it gives me room to play mine. We'll be up by 2 points. I'm playing around a treason. So if they have treason, we want to make sure we're not putting tall units beside each other. You see there's the 2 separating the 8s. We didn't want to put Calviate on the melee row beside the 11. And I hover over it here because I honestly forgot which row does which. But I just wanted to see what they're moving around, having a look at. We have time to just take a high roll. And I think Amnesty's probably our best bet here because we can just snag a 3. It'll count for 5. And it's a good tempo play, keeps us in the race here. And we could pretty much play, I'm willing to spend 3 of the 4 cards that we have. I don't think it's worth spending Masquerade Ball like for the 4 points you'd get in playing it round 1. I think that's really bad. Now, they stuffed this back in my hand, and I should have realistically kept it or passed, but I decided to bluff a little bit, and you'll see kind of what happens with the matchup, right? I go for this here, I just put it down. And now we're in a spot where we might be kind of stuck, right? If they pass here, then we're not doing so great. And sure enough, they're like, no, you're not going to find the points. If I had the second Blightmaker, we would have been fine, but we didn't. I was going to play the Fangs, then I said, whoops, we got to play the Yen here. And so now we have a second Calviate we didn't need, and that could have been avoided, and a leader charge. Safe to say, if your opponent's familiar with your matchup, you can't necessarily bluff them all too well. Or if they're keeping tabs on what's been played. A lot of the decks have similar structures, so I wasn't too proud of that moment, but we can kind of look at how it goes on from here. Fortunately, we did see a couple nice gold cards from them in round 1, and we did pull out pretty much all of our game-changing cards at this point. Now, I don't think we take Calviate for points. And I don't think we necessarily bleed either. Yeah, I think I just go for the pass here.
Nothing will stop us.
Now, what's nice about this Enslave matchup is that we do have 5 tactics, so we are getting Enslave 4. And that's actually not half bad off the Anna. Put that back. I think the Blightmaker is more points than Calviate here, and I don't like necessarily when they know what cards I have in my hand, and they can sort of play around that knowing Calviate's there. I think that when we mulligan the card back, then they'd have to assume we just got something better. I think Joust might actually get more value here than Calviate, just because if they do play a hefty Helga, then I have a direct answer to it. And just double checking Enslave 6. normally when someone's running Fire Scorpion, you'll see them with the Helgas as well. Now they're playing right into Masquerade Ball, which is great. And we do have a poison. And a Vincent. So those are two good things. Vincent just cleans up the poison, then we get the poison kill off of the Masquerade Ball. There was some consideration there to purify the Joachim, but I just felt like we probably want to get rid of all these points. Because that card's also an engine, and they probably have a handful of tactic cards.
To my face.
So they do get the lock, which is not ideal for us. They'll go ahead and use charges as they should, because we're going to be removing that shortly. Now, Vincent right away gets us back in the race here. Problem is, when you're playing Vincent in a matchup against Nilfgaard, they could use Vincent against you as well. But fortunately, in this instance, we don't really go tall. I'm not like a huge fan of using Joachim lately, just because everybody has techs of some variety that are going to be for, you know, basically taking care of tall units. So I'm starting to think at this point, if they don't have Helga, they won't use it. Or if they had Helga, they would use it. Yeah, that's what I mean. But we can just go ahead and take care of the Fire Scorpion while it's there before it gets the order.
Please wait, Your Excellency. I'm falling behind.
And there's nothing else to really
Have I something in my
do in this case. I think that Masquerade Ball can come down here. We can start getting that warmed up. I'm a little bit concerned about them taking the Dane, but instead they just decide to get rid of it, which is okay, I guess. We can just do something a little bit proactive here and get the poison. We have an agent, well, two agents in hand, so we want to get down Usurper first, right? We want Brathens and Blightmaker to come afterwards. And prior to playing Blightmaker, we'd probably want to put down the Anna first, just so that we don't get potential damage from the Blightmaker onto the Lydia that we're trying to poison remove here. So and that was inevitable, right? We played Vincent early, so they're going to use it against us. Now the benefit here is that we could potentially use Vincent against them again. So I'm looking for maybe that opportunity as well. And if I was going more like a Assimilate based, like if I had Terra Nova and all that, I would probably have a Bribery. I like Bribery quite a bit, but I just didn't feel like I wanted to use that here. Now, we go for this every time, because if we hit one of the two front cards, we get a good leader. I don't want to double proc on Assimilate, so I'll go ahead and take it here just in case it gets out of hand and we can't take it later. And then you know the rest. At this point, we have Brathens for whatever, and Ku for whatever. If we need proactivity, we can just go ahead and take an Emissary.
Speak your mind. To the
Now that's not good. So I think we just Ku the Brathens, right?
Take him to the woods and release the hounds.
And I'm trying to decide if I should go for damage here. I think damage is pretty safe.
A secret compartment. Delightful.
We're just like trading Brathens back and forth. There it goes back again. And that's not going to be enough, and we don't even get to finish the game in this case. That was awesome. And moving on to the fourth game, we have Nilfgaard, Enslave, yet again. And to be fair, I'm a little bit concerned going first. I'd much rather be on red in the mirror match, because then we can decide how far we want to go with the round. But in this event, we sort of have to play into what they want. Now, we could potentially tuck back. We have to take that. I was thinking we could potentially tuck back Masquerade Ball, but I think we just try and temple pass as quick as possible. You take the Dead Man's Tongue here, and just because we missed our Thins, I want to at least use one, get as many points as possible here. It leaves us vulnerable at 15 points, but we got to be careful.
Suffering ennobles friends.
So they give spying, that's fine. We can't really do anything with that. We're not going to be able to lock it or really do a whole lot here. So I don't want to go taller than 15 points either. We could take the Diplo.
Dance, my lovelies, dance!
And I'm just thinking here, okay, it's probably getting removed regardless. If anything, we could have taken the mage and then killed it off with the tourney joust. If they didn't remove it, I think Caveat can work here. Again, play around Treason whenever you can in this matchup, because a lot of people are running it. My computer's not liking this project. It's like a 2-hour-plus video with a bunch of different clips and stuff like that. It's making loud noises. But, hopefully it stays and starts to work faster. We just leave as soon as we can here because, again, it's only a matter of time with the 2 assimilate engines before they catch up and they overtake us, so it's better that we just get out, because if they remove our 15-point unit, we're in big trouble. And I suppose that just gets them ahead, that's fine. When I see them actually play it from our grave, then I'm not too worried about them using an illusionist to make copies of it and then snagging our higher bronzes later on, so that's good. Now, they had to go 2 cards down, so I don't anticipate that they really try and go for a crazy bleed here.
I forgive you. This time.
They cooed my Caveat round 1. They're going to be playing their Caveat here round 2. I mean, their draws are going to be great. I think they just wanted to get it out of their hand this round, at least. And I don't have a lot of good cards. Well, bad cards I could play, which would be good cards in this case. So I opt to play the Cupbearer here. I don't love it, but if we get the pass here, the idea is to put one of the hunters down on melee, get the bleeding, and just barely take the round that way. I think anything else is going to be too expensive at this point. And that's pretty much the perfect hand. We can keep the Fangs potentially for an alternative setup for the Hunter, and or for the Vincent. I'm just showing you guys that there, hovering over them. And Blightmaker is just a lot of points if we use that, so I kept that for that reason. Not a lot of proactive plays here, so ball just goes down first. I think it's only a matter of time before we get a pretty good target for the ball. And we know that defender's not gonna stick, guys. Would have been nice to have the cupbearer for this reason, but that's fine. And I opt to just basically take out the defender there. We want to get rid of... There we go. Perfect lock. And we can just poison out the Dame, because they're probably going to give status on something throughout the course of the game. And it's possible they have something like a Tecton Diviner to purify the Helga, but I doubt it. There's not really a whole lot of assimilate from the looks of it so far, with exception to maybe the mages in round 1, but and again, another proactive play, put Usurper down here, because just like the other games, in this case we have 3 agents in hand that we're going to be playing after that, so it's going to engine quite nicely.
No good wine will come from here, not even comfort.
This feels like the same game we just played.
Barbarians all.
It's basically 2 for 2 when cooing my Vincent didn't work, because now we can coup their Vincent and get rid of their 11, which is massive. And I take it there they were probably trying to roll a cupbearer. But before they do anything else, we want to go ahead and remove that as soon as possible. And Brathens could potentially go for a Duchess into a Van Morleham Hunter, because there's probably going to be something else we could lock here. Played around that pretty well. Now, I had to play Brathens first because they didn't play anything that we could use our leader charges on, and I want to get those out and give them the best possible value prior to using the Anna Henrietta. But at this point in the game, it looks like we win, or should win. Damien, not a chance. So I thought about locking it. I was gonna lock it, I just wanted to be certain, and I honestly felt like we should just get rid of it. Sure enough, though, we can lock Stefan, no problem. And then we probably just take the other one for points, right? Well, we'd hit...
You have our undivided
That was a whoops. So whatever I was doing there was not the right move. Basically, we wanted to use the leader charge on the Calviate, and we wanted to enslave the Helga, but it's fine either way. It wasn't very close, just pointing that one out. Next matchup, game 5, we got off the books. And thinning package is nice. I don't know if I want to have Anna in round 1. I also don't really want the fangs. I also have to mute my cell phone, 1 second. That's cool. I got a message about some Polish Gwent tournament that's going on this weekend. I might look into actually joining it after I finish this. So we go ahead, take a proactive play. And that's pretty daring because we are playing against Syndicate, who has the ability to poison that, right? And I'm fully aware. Now, again, I'm not super keen on putting down a Blightmaker on an empty board, so I'm pretty sure I go ahead and take the Calviate here. Another idea would be Diplo, but again, we don't really want to boost anything that we have on our side, like a deploy boost, and we don't want to damage deploy either. So Diplo is not really the best when they have an empty board state. It's just the Calviate here.
I forgive you. This time.
And I'm not too worried, because even if they do finish the poison here, fine. I'd be willing to play a Blightmaker at that point onto an empty board to look for a pass. And sure enough, we get the Raiders, that's okay.
Defeat them with hunger, crush them with thirst.
What I think they're trying to do is establish a little bit of a board state and get a little bit of coin and try and surprise me with the follow-up poison. And I'm just kind of sensing that. I know that if I go in with something like the Dead Man's Tongue, I should have enough room to get out of the round regardless if they poison even in another turn.
Make way! Move it!
Yeah, we have some room to play here. I don't like Diplos as much against Syndicate as I do like Northern Realms, for example. Or I like Diplos against Scoia'tael a lot, but Syndicate, sometimes they don't really benefit you. They have to do with profit, and then you gotta find a spender a lot of the time, so putting a Diplo banished is fine. We still have one, and I still have room to take it here. It's not very expensive. So that's what I mean, like, the Fist Tech doesn't really help me a whole lot if I wasn't playing Masquerade.
Shh, my noble knight. Be still.
And I didn't take Fist Deck here because I wasn't intending on playing Fangs from hand anyways. And if I needed a follow-up poison, I could have went for the Trafficker, so either way was fine. I think when we see a card like Fallen Rayla, it tells us that something big's coming here. So I decide to just back out at this point before it gets bad. And they might have to play 2 because of the Sly Seductress basically getting that extra point. Maybe they didn't account for it. And seeing Freak Show in round 1's huge, right? And they pretty much have to use all their coin to get out here. It should be pretty hard for them to bleed, because we're going to be top decking into cards like Vincent and Yen, and these are going to be really good answers if they pull out the whole King of Beggars swing with Savola, right? It directly answers both of those options, which is nuts. Not overly concerned about an informant, because we have access to one off Brathens and even a second one off the coup. And again, can't say I love the Fangs for the same reason. Now here, I don't mind tossing the Hunter. We still have 2 locks off leader, and we didn't even have to use one of them in round 1 because we passed on it and they had to play horse in after, so it was a pretty good trade there. Now, at this point in the match, because we have all our good cards, the Informant would technically be our next best card. So if I'm taking any mulligans here, it would be for the Hunter. But I don't think it's necessary at this point, because we have the 2 locks off leader. Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit concerned in this matchup. I'm starting to think, okay, is it some kind of Salamander deck? Because they have Fallen Rayla and they've got Poison Package, but generally Salamander likes Jackpot, so I'm feeling pretty comfortable that that's not going to be the case. Heatwave kind of hurts here, though.
All I do for the Empire.
And we have maybe a turn or 2 of proactivity left in us here before we really need them to play some units.
I'm gonna lose your teeth too.
I feel like when they take a thin, I take a thin, we trade thins. They're not doing a whole lot, so we don't have to do a whole lot either. We've got a pretty significant lead here, but if you've played against Syndicate this season, you guys know they have tons of points in one big swing at the end. And I'm thinking about doing a tier list type video. It would be my first one that I've tried. That's something that's probably going to be coming this week, and I'm going to touch on stuff like that in that video. So fortunately for us, I find Syndicate has some of the hardest time finding their gold cards, and we're seeing them play quite a few bronzes in hand in round 3, which is a really good indication for us that we'll be alright. Now, we could just go and cycle off the Informant or take the Brathens first to get the extra points, right? If you want to greed it out, that's the thing. I don't necessarily want to go taller, even though taller might mean more points, just because I think that it's better just to get stable 4 power units opposed to just boosting something super high and maybe getting it poisoned out. It could change the game drastically. So we can't play Ghoul because it'll die. We don't have Tribute Coin. But we can go ahead and take another Renegade.
Her grace will not be pleased.
And placement doesn't really matter.
The docks! The docks! Which way to the docks?
I don't really want to stack for like a Tavern Brawl. I'm not loving Usurper. Actually looking at this right now. Usurper beside the Madame, or the Dame. So them using Decree into Professor tells me that they probably have the Savola in hand. If you guys want to see a really good off-the-books deck, I had a lot of fun playing one the other day. Make sure you go back about 2 days, 3 days, and check that one out. It has a really good spend-to-profit ratio. It runs very clean.
I'd imagine for a little rendezvous.
And so we're kind of just running off with this one here. I don't think we're going to be getting a much better coup than that. That was really good. And we have a Purify if we need it. We have the Poison to give status for something, but it's probably just going to be the Frightener anyways.
To the gentleman with the forehead tattoo at 500.
The most sensible play here would be to either drop Cupbearer down just to play it.
The Van Morlehams have particular tastes.
We give status to get the extra point for the Dame. No need to really take a Purify in this turn. But the sequencing, we have to go in with the Anna Henrietta next, which is unfortunate. Actually, Savola saves us a little bit here. Because now we could save our charge for leader for something else that might matter more. I don't think I lock the King of Beggars. I want them to think it's safe. And then we can just yen that at the end. And that tells me that that's probably going to be the last spender that they have.
Stress release is necessary for one's health.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I end up stacking Anna between the two tall units at on the back row, guys, just in case you're wondering. But it should have been done sooner.
You will answer my question. You are worthy knight of mercy, nor
Probably it's pretty scary. But if I lock that, there's probably a good chance they have to put the rest of their coin into the King of Beggars, which works out very well. It's unfortunate here that this specific leader ability doesn't do a whole lot for us here because we don't have any spenders copied. We have a lot of coins, but weren't able to get a spender. Neither were they really. All their spenders are golds here.
I'm all ears.
So Siggy's just going to push that all the way up to like 20 points. We just take that, win the game, right? And even that for 12 points shouldn't do it here.
Not that it helps.
Good clean win. Moving on to game number 6. We got Skellige Onslaught again. Starting to see the trend, guys. I played a lot of games to get a variety of matchups, but we didn't even get that big of a variety of matchups, which was nuts. So I've got the one Blightmaker, we've got the Coup, we've got the Duchess, we've got the Brathens. We can make a lot of important copies early on. Generally, when I'm playing against Skellige, when I'm on the Nilfgaard side, I like to make a copy of one of the Raiders at least once. I'm thinking at this point, we push it. Because their leader is very useful for us, so I can be a little bit, you know, spend happy with our leader here. I think that's fine. And if we get a couple boats out here, they might be in trouble, right? I went Brathens first instead of just using a hunter, because I felt like with the discard package that Skellige has, assuming they have it in hand and everything's working pretty well, then it really slows us down here. So I wanted to ultimately just win round 1 and try and crank it as hard as possible in round 2. And that strategy seems to work very well for me. Just getting out all their good cards in round 2 and going to a short round 3. And making them have to play proactively, and a lot of their cards have deployed damage, so it puts them in a really bad spot. So we're sort of playing like endgame in the first round, and then playing like first round and second round, if that makes sense.
They can hide your stench.
Looking back on that, I could have cooed the Duchess, then copied the boat again. I mean, we get the extra point, but then we lose the extra point on the coup. It's about the same, really. 3 boats makes it, I don't want to say impossible, but very hard for them to even get back in this round here. And we're in a really good spot. We got 4 engines on the board, technically, and I think they just realized that. We don't play anything else, we just push it into round 2. And tuck that back. The jousts are like real bad here, but seeing a lot of these bronze cards isn't half bad, because this is our trading round, and that's what I was talking about, playing round 2 like a round 1. Now we need something proactive. Honestly, I don't think it really matters all too much. Diplo is fine, I guess. Calviet would have been maybe a bit of a smarter play, so we could have taken something that did damage, but either option I think works fine. With a hand like this, we never intend to actually go for 2-0, we just want to see what we can get in exchange for some of our bronzes. Now, not a lot to do here. Technically, we do get the extra point if we take a defensive joust, play it on the Preacher, because the first bleeding is just going to break the shield. So that's probably the most points here.
I can do a great deal more for you.
Let's not get in the way of my axe.
And we're starting to see some commitments, right? First turn of the round, they played the raiding fleet. Now they're playing the coral, so we're starting to get some of those golds in circulation here. Now, I want to stick in the round a little bit longer, so I don't want to get tempoed on. So, in case they have Berna, I want to go ahead and lock the coral. And then we can start thinking about getting out the Calviet, the Anna, potentially, the poison package. Because I know that if I play Calviet in round 2, we'll top deck into Vincent. And because Usurper flips to an Aristocrat in round 3, we don't have to worry about keeping Anna for round 3, because Anna can just be used as carryover, right? So those 2 other Aristocrats are carryover. The poisons are going to keep us in the round. We save the coup. We keep the Usurper more than likely. There's even some consideration to play coup if it means we get more cards out of them.
Drinking can be hazardous.
But I'd say Holger's probably our best poison at this point. The Coral's locked, the boat's not doing a whole lot. That's the only engine that's really getting points per turn here, so...
Sit at my table and let's drink.
Speak your mind.
And I'm opting for this real quick because I'm doing some math, and if they decide to hero pass on us, we still win the game. But I wanted to get the Anna out here before we get in trouble. Because Cupbearer is actually not a bad card to save either, right? If they're playing Rupture, we can obviously purify that. And just like that, we're back in the race, right? Usurper gives us 12 points. And then we get the 6 off the leader. It's more than enough coup to finish things up here. Depending on what they play, we might even be able to swing cooing that boat. That should still be fine. And another big commitment too, I'm really happy with the trades here in round 2. They just go ahead and remove that. Under no circumstance do we play here. It doesn't make sense. We don't get ahead. So we'll just go ahead and take the pass. Go into round 3. We're going to pull into ball, I believe, Vincent and I want to say Yen. There you go. So we don't take mulligans, right? Just showing you guys what's left. We're good. And I want to yen that here because it just makes the most sense. They have to play something else here, and potentially it might have a deploy effect. So we're sort of playing a little bit of a unitless style. We can do a short ball, that's fine. And we actually have really good Reacher removal here. So we play ball, and I want to remove the Herald. Just because I know they're going to be playing another warrior like 90%. So the 6 damage off the leader it gets its value. And then we're obviously going to go in and maybe take Vincent on the 8 and just poison out whatever else.
Get away with this.
And I want to go Usurper Finisher just so you have a really big point swing to finish things off. It gives them a little bit less to work with here too. And so that's not all that great. And we can click those back, and it wasn't too close. Really good game. Now moving on to game 7, we have Nilfgaard, Tactical Advantage. And I'm not sure what it is. It could be Hyper Thin, it could be Colgrim, it could be Mill. We have a pretty top-heavy round 1 hand. We could probably kick back Masquerade Ball, granted that we have Caveat. Now, I'm trying to decide if I want to go tall with Emissary or kick it back. I might actually kick it back, because we have Dead Man's Tongue already, so I don't really want both. Pulling into the mage is kind of unfortunate, but I'm sure we could just play around that fine.
Praise be to the great sun!
There's an argument whether we take Poison or whether we just take a Blightmaker. I think the Blightmaker is probably safe. We don't know how tall they're going to go, and we might be able to see better options than 8.
Let us see.
And I'm not really sure what the Cantarell is for, but we have to be careful about that.
No worries, my lord.
Maybe make it less appealing for them. I'm thinking about putting Attorney Joust on that here defensively, obviously making a coup worse in this case, and that should just be fine. I don't know if we have the round 1 to go ahead and win it. However, we can just play cards and see if we can just stay in the round long enough for it to matter. Now, there's a consideration to even just dump the Dead Man's Tongue here, and I don't mind taking the Blightmaker. I was thinking about just playing the Mage from hand in this case, just get it out of the way, basically, and I'm sure that we could stay in the round with the poison. If I didn't have such reach, being the 9-point poison available at this time, I probably wouldn't have taken it. But you know what I mean, even one slow turn, we can still get there with 4 if they tempo pass on us, which is completely fine.
I've prepared a drink. Truly electrifying.
And so I'm trying to bait the pass more or less here. I think it would be great if we can get it so that, you know, poison out the 9, we're good to go. We also want to make sure we get Caveat down, which is one of those things. So maybe take a poison here. If they pass, we finish the poison. If they don't pass, maybe we play the Caveat first.
Onward, sons of Nilfgaard! Drinking can be hazardous to your health.
And we surely take that here, right? On a pass, we could just play whatever. Coup would do it. But if they do continue to play, then we're pretty well stuck here. We can't continue to play instead of round. That's fine. I can just go ahead and coup even Roach, and it would be enough here, so. Works out quite well. Go for the pass. Our deck is sorted in order, so there is consideration to push, but they do have the ability to defend a bleed quite well with their leader. That's a pretty good hand, right? I'm just looking at what we missed here. So if we go into round 3, we're getting basically everything else. I wonder if we ever just dump Q, but if we're going into round 3, we probably just want to keep it, so that's why we kept it in this case.
No good wine will come from here, not even compost.
And 7 games in, you guys see the consistency within our draws. Not going all in with the Calvi, it's just fine.
Do not make me beg.
That is a little bit strange. I guess they're doing like a hyper thin, because they're sure not really thinning us out too much. It's strange. I'm deciding to play a late ball, just because, or like a not right now ball basically. I don't want to proc it before they go tall. I want to see what they have as far as tall units before we start proccing scenario. So there's a few things that we can play here. Couple agents, we have like the little Brathan's package, the emissary, things like that. Q. And then we have our 2 aristocrats being Anna and Vincent, right?
Let their blood break their bones and spirit.
So this is a very difficult decision, because if it's a Colgrim deck of some sort, purifying this means that they can go and take a Letho, make a copy of the defender, and then put whatever behind it. But if we kill it, they can renew it. So I feel like destroying it's almost worse. And I don't want to use the Yen just yet, because if they do play another defender, surely we can just go and Yen that one if it comes down to it, and then we can just lock and remove Colgrim with something like Vincent, right?
For you, a very special item I have.
So we see a no duplicate deck. I'm surprised I didn't notice this the whole time, to be fair.
The shame I have no time.
An interesting choice.
I don't mind that trade at all, really. Vilgefort's got its value, but it took out a token, so wasn't really the best, I guess you could say. We don't have any good bronze cards to copy, so we're gonna have to go in with something
I'm falling behind.
like the emissary here. Kind of want to split out the points again. Playing around treason and things like that as much as we can in this case. So this reminds me of back when I was like rank 14, a couple years ago at least. Yeah, it was a while ago when the Runewright brothers came out, and I kept trying to play them because I saw like a deck guide or something. I just I don't like to question, you know, like I figure we get rid of it here because sometimes it high rolls and that could like drastically change the course of the game. So I figure, you know what, we'll use the leader charge here so we could split up that combo, and then we don't have to worry as much about the second one here. Let's see, Shoop. So Shoop has like a decent auto being good if they were gonna take cards from us. That type of Shoop though, can't say I love it. It was pretty evenly distributed here, so and I think it's safe to say at this point of the game I'm not too concerned. You can go ahead and put ball down here.
They truly spoil us.
And that's one of the cases where it does get heat waved, but you guys see it doesn't really matter that much, right? I'm just trying to decide what I should use here. I don't think I want to use Yen first. I also don't really need to use my leader, but that would kind of make sense if we were to use the leader and then play something. Yen in the defender's okay, I guess. Because again, if it's a Colgrim, for whatever reason, we have an answer to it. And at this point here, I'm pretty sure we just decide that, you know what, it's going to be very difficult for whatever they play to take them ahead of us here. So just go ahead and give that a lock. And we'll play Anna first, just because when they go with their leader, I know that it's going to have Doomed, and we can destroy that and get more points. And I took in consideration Snowdrop Finisher, it just wasn't enough. Right, and that's assuming we don't even use our leader. I'm just clicking here to show you guys basically the game wasn't even very close, and that's even with the heat wave to the Masquerade Ball. Now moving on to game 8, we have Nilfgaard double cross. Tons of Nilfgaard today in the matchups, like you couldn't avoid it basically. So we have to put back the mages here, and I don't love Usurper round 1, but we don't really have a lot going on. So we could flip the lamp and put down the emissary, which is fine. But when I do something like that, especially in a Nilfgaard mirror, it makes me just want to get out of the round as quick as possible. So that's definitely something to consider. They've got a lot of engines here, okay. Now, I decide to go and basically make a copy of that first, because we could play that whole game if they want to play that game. We have the Brathens for another copy here, so...
With pleasure.
And Dandelion was a huge curveball, but it seems to work out for them quite well.
Take him to the woods and release the hounds.
Now, obviously they're trying to overtake here. We have to go and respect that and put our own Brathens down.
Coin after the face depicted thereon.
My duty? To stick my nose where it doesn't belong.
And I don't want to play this one out too much here. We might have enough time to go ahead and take, let's say, the Blightmaker, and then we could potentially purify that as well.
secret compartment. Delightful.
So shutting down one engine's fine. Realistically, like, I could have used Yennefer's Invocation on the Brathens there. For one, it was a little bit slow. Secondly, I don't really know how I feel about bringing out a Brathens again in later rounds. I was trying to get rid of the antics early on and just have like a shorter, cleaner end of the game without, you know, I make a Brathens, they make a Brathens, back and forth, back and forth. And so they go full leader here. So honestly, if I can just get out of the round, that's fine. And we should be able to do so with the Blightmaker, I would say. We just need a good hit.
A fine vintage it would have made.
That's actually a nice snipe there. There's consideration to just take a leader charge here, just shut one of them down, but I don't want to go in that deep here. I just want them to play something a little bit shallow, then I'll leave. And that's not bad.
Everyone has their secrets. Everyone.
So that'll get us out, no problem. And just given the fact that they have the 3 engines in play, and also passing on them here, yeah, it's sometimes, it's a little bit like, I'm reluctant to use Yennefer's Invocation, for example, if I had it, when I'm just a few points behind the opponent, even if they played a good card, like our Brathens, for example. So it makes more sense that they would just play something kind of small and just use it later, I guess. But I'm feeling pretty good about the hand that we have. If they want to go and push here, we have really good reach with just some of our bronzes. They don't have their leader ability, which makes a huge difference. And simple enough. I think because we haven't seen the Calviate, we want to take the Blightmakers here on the dry pass, just because I don't think it's going to work out in this game, and I'm pretty sure that's like, what, the first game out of the 8 games that it didn't work in round 1? Or 2 even? Sure enough, we pull it round 3. Our hand was just pretty mangled. And I can't say that that's a good hand for round 3. It's actually a pretty bad hand for round 3.
My, the Van Moorlehams, they truly spoil us.
If not by strength.
But fortunately, I think we just win. Like, we probably would win this game regardless, just because of the interesting techs, I guess, the opponent put in their deck, like Dandelion and Infiltrator round 3. Cards like this don't make a huge difference. This is not very good for us here. Look for something proactive play. And I'd say that's a much better Joust for sure. It actually does something, so we can go ahead and remove that.
I wonder what my snares will have captured this time.
Because we're not going to be getting Usurper here, and it's our most expensive card in the deck, it just makes sense that we go ahead and we banish that. We take the 12 boost, so at least it still gets the value kind of that it would have had otherwise if we played it. Alzer is just, again, it's one of those decks, you know? I was trying to decide if I should yen here. I think I just take the leader charge here because I don't think that they would have a Purify. And if they did, they'd still Purify it. Then we'd have a turn to respond to it. We have another lock. Trying to figure out how to play here without proccing our scenario, which is why I opt to go in for the Purify.
Stars contend you shall be victorious today.
And sure enough, that's fine. If I go ahead here and lock the Alzer, then we can actually poison the Assimilate engine, which is actually not bad, because at least we're poisoning an engine in this case. And the lead that we have is pretty significant, and we still have the yen as a tall punish, so I'm feeling pretty confident at this point, even if we just play the...
Confounded boots.
Yeah, we lock that other engine too, and just finish the poison here.
Beaters, forward! Let the hunt begin.
Simple enough. And I knew we were holding out for something better. That's definitely the yen. I can't think of a better way to use the yen than that. So we'll take it. So at this point I've seen something like this before. It's like an Assimilate deck with Alzer, and they're playing spells, I guess, to proc the Alzer. I want to say that was something that was trendy, like, within the last year at some point. It was pretty cool to play against it a couple times. And depending on the shoot roll, we could be in trouble. If they seize our 15, it's no good. And good. And that should just take it. Whatever they have wouldn't be enough in this case, really. $20-point win. We did miss a lot of our gold cards, but we still managed to get a win here. Moving on to the next game, we have Scoia'tael Guerilla Tactics, and I'm surprised we finally start getting into these games. You think they'd be much sooner? I would say that this is going to be one of the more challenging matchups for us. If it's the Alzer version, then I think we're doing okay. If it's the Trap version, I think we're doing very poorly. But what I've noticed lately is that more people are playing the Alzer version just because it has a lot more points. And it's tough on an opening turn here to play because we don't know exactly what they're going to be doing. I don't necessarily want to go in with the Dead Man's Tongue and boost up the Lamp Djinn, just because if they have a Serpent Trap, that's horrible. So 9 is the peak of what I'm willing to settle for here.
Now you see.
So we have a way of getting that done. We can basically go and coup the Mage Infiltrator, get the Death Blow, bring it back to our side. And that should just be fine. All of a sudden, Sasuke is not a huge threat. And this is one of the big reasons right now why I have the Mage Assassin. if it wasn't so prominent in the meta having Saskia, then I probably would take it. Nah, maybe take it out, but it does work quite well with imprisonment. We can just kill both of those. It's beautiful. Now we got a round control we're looking for. We have the 2 Blight Makers, which is huge. We have the Dead Man's Tongue, which is huge. So we're going to be getting like all of our good cards in this game. And the fact they're playing Nilfgaard from hand tells me, okay, round 1 should be secured with some of the plays we have here. I want to get down the Blightmaker as soon as possible because we know the Matron's going to get more points than 2. It's definitely worth getting that damage on there. And as far as proactive play, we can just go ahead and take this here. I would imagine that playing this here probably gets us a pass. I'm putting back the Duchess Informant just because I feel like it's not going to be as necessary in this matchup here. And same with the Poison, because we don't know necessarily if they're going to be playing Alzer or if they're going to be playing Traps. But I haven't really seen a lot of Traps or anything like that, so it's tough to say. Go ahead and put back Mage Assassin. I don't necessarily want Diplo here either. We have 1. I think that's more than enough. And we can Calviate in this round, which is great. There's consideration to actually just take that here, see how they respond, maybe get a bit more information about what we're up against.
I shall not repeat Emir's mistakes.
I work for the
And
working for humans.
because we interfered with the whole Saskia play, they have a lot of cards that they weren't able to thin out of their decks, so they're going to have to play them from hand, which is a lot slower than if Saskia was bringing them out automatically. So I want to take advantage of that a little bit and play into the round here just to see what else they got. I know that they don't have those huge temple swings, assuming that it's more of a control-based version. Without using leader, of course, right? The leader plays for tons of points in this deck. Now that's a little bit annoying. I know that we're only up by 1 point here. If I pass, I still get the card back. That's a consideration for sure. A lot of what we have is slow, but we could theoretically play Usurper here and just see if they can make the points.
Big Nilfgaard break again.
And honestly, that Cat Witcher, if left untreated, is going to get crazy, so I decided to go ahead and take care of it now.
Style. That's right. I like fighting with style.
Few poachers dare.
And we have a pretty comfortable lead, so that's also a thing. I know that we're going to be getting our Aristocrats in round 3, so I don't mind spending one of the Van Morlehem Hunters here, and then we can even go as far as playing the Diplo. And that seems like a pretty good pass though, right? They play a trap. I don't know what it is. I don't want to play into it. I know that they're going to at least have to play one more card here, right? And Crush the Trap's pretty good. Synthesis is okay. That's sort of an indication that we're playing more into the unit list type, and that's kind of frustrating or scary for us here. It sucks because we don't want Ku, we don't want Diplo, but we also don't want Yen in this specific matchup, assuming it's traps, right? We saw the one trap, so I'm pretty confident that it is. And Sabretooth, yeah. And this is kind of where I feel like it's going to go all downhill, right? It's going to be very difficult for us to keep anything on the board or interact with what they have. We have last save, but we don't have enough time to really deal with the problems that they have once they flip all those tokens and we actually have points we can interact with, so that's going to be the difficult part. And I was thinking Serpent. We just gave them a free point. I don't want to admit it.
Your Excellency. I'm falling behind.
And to be fair, it's fine. We play well into most matchups, and you guys seen based on the videos today that even matchups against, let's say, a Nilfgaard mirror, depending on what it is, right? I would say most of them we've been doing very well. Terran over with double cross might have a little bit of an advantage over us because they have a couple more provisions, but even then we have, I would say, more tall punish, right? But this matchup's just not our favorite. And we don't want to play into Sabretooth, so we don't want to play the Cupbearer on melee. We have all these leader charges banked up that we can't really use either, which is kind of frustrating, right?
The Van Morlehams have particular tastes.
Wasn't expecting a second one, but that's fine, I guess. And you see what I mean? Because we have Calviate, we're putting all our gold cards on top. I guess it makes sense that they go for the double Pitfall because they know that our hand's going to be full of high provision cards, more than likely. So that makes some sense from their part. Now, the best line possible is probably just to take the Hunter for bleeding on the 2 in the back, finish the poison with the Fangs, and then maybe move up the Fangs that we have on the range row to save the point.
The hounds have caught a scent.
I think if I was to do this matchup again, I would probably try and play down as far as possible in round 2, even if it costed me the card advantage. Like, even if I didn't get card back, I think that was the play, because we had a couple more cards we could have played. Because 1 or 2 traps can make that difference, right? When it's staged so that they can play the traps whenever they like in the best way possible, it doesn't help us much at all. And this is really painful. Technically a 0 will 3-point Vincent from its base power only. The other card is going to die anyways. And because we think that's Serpent Trap, I guess the best course of action here would to be we Yen the Sabretooth and then we use our leader after. That wasn't very fun. But yeah. But you see what I mean? It wasn't really a bad game. Like, it was only an 8-point loss, so it could have just been the difference of playing a bit further into round 2, like I mentioned. Now, going into another Guerilla Tactics deck, I want to see if we have a chance to redeem ourselves here. Can't say I love poisons, but if we're going to be using them, round 1's a good time to use them here. Duchess is pretty good. Brathen's is pretty good here. Joust is pretty good because we have a lot of engine removal and copy. Anna's not as great for round 1 at least.
Have you seen a fuse lying about, have you? A fine vintage it would have made.
So I bring out the Finn here just so that we make the odds of them getting a good trade not so great, right? They can hit a 3 or a 2.
Like a tempt fate if it's passing day.
A little bit confused with seeing the dwarves. I haven't seen this in quite a while, so I don't know exactly what we're playing into just yet. Now the Pyrotech's a little bit of a liability for them, but the Miner's not. So I decide here we go ahead and we remove the Miner because that's playing for 6 points.
Your magic can't harm me. No magic
Now,
can.
Maxi, this is starting to look like a classic Guerilla Tactics control deck that I would have played maybe with, like, you know, the Pyrotechs, the Maxi, that sort of thing, maybe a Brayhan. So I'm starting to get some suspicions that it could have some Witchers, right? It could be that sort of thing. Also notice that they're row stacking here, which could indicate maybe Cat Witcher, the Mentors, right? And the whole gate and combo. Now, to be fair, there's consideration to coup that, because if they have bonded, that could also be a thing, right? I want to play around that getting bonded and getting the extra points, so it feels appropriate. And I'm totally confused at this point, to be fair. I don't know what we're playing against. We could take the Dead Man's Tongue before anything gets too tall. Probably just dump the Blightmakers here. I want to abuse it, and I think we have a good shot at winning on even if we just really push here. So, might as well try. When?
Not your lucky day.
Yeah. So, suspicion confirmed. It's probably not like a whole Saskia deck and stuff like that. That's a lot of points. We know what the obvious move would be to do, right? We want to eventually poison that. And I don't want to play into making their gating better, so we put that on the range row. I think I just copy a Pyrotech, to be fair.
A wee hint. Very jiggleless.
I admit I lost my temper. Lost it bad.
That's really not too bad. There's a 14-point poison sitting right there for us, so it feels like something we should just take.
Drinking can be hazardous to your health.
And I don't think that they can play into that unless they have a Purify. So we end up winning the round. It didn't really cost us a whole lot, maybe Brathens, but I think that the trades were pretty fair. And hopefully we top deck into something else, because it would be kind of nice to see if they have like Gezras or whatever, or just have them go into a shorter round 3 where that wouldn't mean as much. We do have our leader locks anyways, but... And it's quite nice here. Emissary's a little bit weaker. Calviet's pretty good. 2 locks off the leader. I don't think we need another one. I have 2 aristocrats, and we've got Calviet, we've got Anna Henrietta to Crockett. I think we just go ahead and play.
They truly spoil us.
And they go into a mine. There's a lot of dwarfs in this deck. And I think at that point they just realized, okay, they pull it out, it's done. They ended up forfeiting, right? Moving on to another one. Let's try another Guerilla Tactics deck, and maybe this will be more of our Saskia, or what's more common right now. Put back the mage. We don't really want to play it from hand, unless there's like a opportunity just to dump it, so we might as well just get rid of it. And so I'm squaring up my round 1 hand to tech for a Saskia play. I also want to make sure we get rid of some of our good cards like Masquerade so we can play it very deep if we need to. And I think we risk it all here.
The shame I have.
Serpent check. Okay, so it's pretty much Alzar because they're playing spells right here. It's one of those cards that you don't really run unless you're playing spells.
A fine vintage it would have made.
Hopefully you guys stuck around to this game, because this game is one of my favorites, I think. Now that I remember it, it was pretty good.
Defeat them with hunger, crush them with thirst.
So we have a lot of inexpensive cards we could just go ahead and play here. Dead Man's Tongue's good. I would have considered taking Infiltrator as well. Consideration, because we would have been able to disrupt the bonded, so if they had like a mushy truffle, it wouldn't be as good. We just boost something that's already damaged a little bit.
The soil is fertile.
Actually, I'm very glad we saved it. That makes a huge difference.
No worries.
Easy removal, right?
I'll remain unseen, be assured.
So we got another one. With the boost up, okay, I'm trying to decide if I want to hit maybe like an Ulcer later that has Vitality on it, or if I want to hit something like that. But I know that if they come out and they play their Simlas, then it actually breaks the gap and gets them ahead, pretty much. So there is a consideration here, just because we have the access to Vincent, that we go ahead and we take. And to be fair, I believe I go and I underestimate what they're able to do a little bit on this next turn. Pretty sure we look for a pass here.
You are no lunet of mine.
And you can see why. We're up about 20 points, right? And I'm thinking, okay, it'll probably take them 2 cards, but Heatwave's pretty big. And then Milva just finishes the job. That's crazy how many points they get there. Nuts. Vitality takes them to 23. Now, One thing that is actually very good about that play though is that they use the heat wave. So Masquerade Ball automatically works. Two Fangs a little bit greedy. I don't mind dumping one here potentially, right? Or the Cupbearer. I guess the logic was that we can pull the Cupbearer again later, potentially. Give us something to look forward to playing.
I shall not repeat Emir's mistakes.
I forgot here that I actually played Calviet after I shuffled the card back in, so it would have rearranged it still. We should have actually taken the mulligan there because it would have confirmed the Cupbearer. So yeah, if I was to redo that, we'd get the extra point plus small little engine if we just took the one mulligan there. To be fair though, this is one play session. Like, this is the end of a long day of playing Gwent, so these things happen. Now I'm just looking at the fact that they've already played the original 2. We don't have to worry about that threat as much. I don't really want to play an aristocrat here because I don't necessarily want to proc our scenario just yet. There's going to be way better, you know, reasons and ways to go about it. Now, if push comes to shove, at least I have my own sort of bonded.
Peace with humans?
Don't be fret about me. Can take care of myself.
And they know what they're doing. They're basically really trying to push back us getting what we need here. I'm going to go ahead and play around the froth a little bit and just provoke them to play something here on melee. We need something to target here. We'll split up the rows just a little bit. And there comes the altar, perfect. So that's exactly what we want to deal with here. Now I'd say it's a bit of a success story because we have a Codwell that we're going to be able to get on our side of the playing field because we're going to be able to go taller than them. They use their tall punish. I'm just trying to decide how I want to deal with the altar at this point, and if the Cohen's worth dealing with. Because Brathens will take us there, right? And see, they already see the line. And Anna Henrietta is going to be able to come down and sort of chip things away. So that, I'm just trying to decide where I want to put the second one. I'm thinking Cohen at this point, but we don't get to finish the game because they know we're getting Caldwell. We're going to be tall punishing whatever they have. It's going to be great. So, going on to the last game of the day. Game number 12. I probably won't do a 12-game deck guide for a while, to be fair. I think somewhere between 4 and 6 is a good reference point for every day. It's like the 4th matchup in a row we have against Guerilla Tactics, too. So, if I can get a good snipe with the Blightmaker, if we can hit that Saskia 50-50 right now, then we can go ahead and we can play the Mage Infiltrator and kill it. I think that's probably our best bet. Just gotta cross our fingers.
Wine will come from here, not even compost.
And we actually have a really good Vincent setup too here. If you haven't noticed, it's just too bad that we don't have access. I think that's fine.
Look behind you. Oh, come on. Just one look. First, you must learn to fly.
Now, it's one of those things where it's not very simple to remove that. I honestly believe that it's probably fine if we take a leader charge here and deal with the matron. We want to take care of these movement engines as best as possible. Just go ahead, lock it, and make a copy of our own. We can go ahead and maybe coup the second one after. So we've got some options there. Start getting points for ourselves. And I don't love the fact that it doesn't put us ahead, but we could just play anything from hand and get ahead here. So I think we're at a pretty good spot. That's just another card we want to deal with as well, which makes it pretty tough.
I trust no one. Never have.
I don't think they should have taken the 2. I think they should have went for the matron instead, because engines are always going to get more value over a longer round. I'm going to respect the tempo a little bit here.
I hate nothing more than a creaky door.
There's an argument that I could have taken the Catwitcher with the coup instead of the Duchess with the coup, but the Blightmaker could still snipe the 2 instead of the 1, so it evens out quite well. And coincidentally, there we go. So we're doing all right here. We can go ahead and play Calviet maybe to the right of the matron to get that extra boost. Oh, never mind. We can maybe take Calviet still, right? Because now is the time where we're starting to think about maybe getting out of the round with some good carryover, getting our good cards in our hand if we're going to be winning on even. We still have really good plays like the Dead Man's Tongue that are going to be generating tons of points. So I'm feeling pretty confident here that we should either get them to go all in or we should just win on even.
I'll get it done.
Yeah, it's just not enough. Fangs aren't bad to take here. And I boost that because I want to play around the death blow with the Milva, right?
Children giving parents up unto death.
That's a perfect joust. Diplo gets us ahead no matter what we play. Anna's carryover. Opted for the Anna here.
The one thing I cannot abide.
And yeah, with Mushy Truffle, I think we're fine.
Come on! Who's fast?
With this situation that they were in, it would have been hard for them to go all in Milva leader because it wouldn't have been enough points. We're not really going to play specials like that, so I probably don't take the orb, right? Doesn't really do enough for us here. So I'd rather just keep the leader charges and use that. Gets us ahead by 1 point. And that was a pretty fair round. I think we got what we needed out of the way. Now the problem is they have that Mushy Truffle carryover, so I'm trying to decide here if I want to bleed out and go for the 2-0, or if I should just maybe take the pass here. And by basically not getting my aristocrats ready, I decide I want to take the pass, get rid of the Mushy Truffle carryover. We go into round 3 with card advantage and 2 leader charges over them. I think that should be enough to win the game.
Why should I?
And sure enough, they go and they sim last here. So Brathens, Vincent, and Yen. It's so satisfying to know exactly what you're going to pull, because you can already develop a strategy in your head beforehand, which is one of the reasons why I think Calvi is such a good card.
You must banish her. I see no other path.
So we have to respect that.
The Van Moorlehems, they truly
Really easy to do so with the 2 leader charges, though. It's nice and clean. So that was like maybe our 2nd or 3rd heat wave of the day. Not too bad.
Do for the Empire.
And I just don't see them finding the points. Even if they go Alzer here, you know. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up too. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. I'm not sure if it's going to be a deck guide yet or some different type of content. We'll have to decide. But either way, expect an upload tomorrow at 8 AM Eastern Daylight Time. Thanks for watching.